You have settled into the quiet of the evening. The lights are low, the day has loosened its grip, and the stillness around you echoes the slow silence of centuries past. Tonight, we drift back to the medieval monastery, a place of stone walls and long shadows, a place where bells divided the hours, where silence was not only a discipline, but a way of life, a place that many believed to be holy. But for those who lived within, it could be both a sanctuary and a prison. For 2 hours, we will walk the cloisters together. We will feel the cold stones underfoot, listen to the distant chanting of monks in their choir stalls, and breathe in the heavy incense of prayer. You will see the monastery through the eyes of its youngest and most vulnerable members, the novices. You will hear of one man's struggle, Bernard of Clairvaux, a monk who became both saint and politician. You will glimpse the mysteries of illuminated manuscripts, where color and gold gleamed inside books that took years to craft. And finally, you will look upward, toward abbots and bishops, toward the wealth and influence that made monasteries both houses of prayer and engines of power. Let us begin, slowly. Let us step inside. The bells toll. It is morning. You are a novice, not yet a monk, but bound to the life of obedience. And you will soon discover why monastic life, though holy, could be harsh and unforgiving. The day begins before the sun. It is cold. The stone floor beneath your feet bites with a chill that feels older than memory itself. Your blanket has slipped during the night, and the thin straw mattress beneath you scratches your skin. You rise when the bell calls, not because you wish to, but because you must. You are a novice monk, a boy of perhaps 15, or perhaps younger. You entered the monastery because your family sent you. Perhaps they could not feed you. Perhaps they dreamed of piety. Perhaps they wanted influence in the church. Whatever the reason, you belong here now. Your head has been shaved in the monastic tonsure. The crown of your scalp is bare, and the rest is clipped short. You wear a plain robe, rough to the touch, and a rope at your waist. Nothing more. There are no bright colors here, no laughter, only the rhythm of the hours. The first prayer is long. You kneel on the cold floor, your knees pressed into stone, your body swaying with the chanting of psalms. You do not yet know the words by heart, but you murmur them anyway, hoping your voice will blend into the tide of sound. The hours stretch. After prayer, there is silence. Always silence. You may not speak freely. You may not chatter. The rule is strict. Words are precious, rationed out only when necessary. When you want to ask another novice a question, you must learn to use gestures instead. A sign for bread, a sign for water, a sign for prayer. Your hands become a second language. Your tongue lies still. The work begins. You sweep, you scrub, you carry water from the well. You help in the kitchen, or in the fields, or in the scriptorium, if your master believes you worthy of learning letters. It is endless, repetitive, back-breaking. And yet, the work is never truly yours. It belongs to the monastery, to the brothers who guide you to God. You eat in silence. The food is plain. Bread, perhaps coarse and dark, thin pottage of beans. Sometimes fish, rarely meat, except on feast days. You chew slowly with others around you, while one brother reads aloud from a holy text. His voice echoes through the hall, and you are reminded. Even eating is an act of discipline. The day continues with prayer after prayer, hour after hour. 7 times the bell will ring before the day is done, and each time you will return to the chapel, chanting psalms, bowing low, whispering litanies. The world outside fades into a distant dream. There is no warmth in winter. The cloisters are cold, the cells colder still. You sleep again on straw, sometimes with only a thin blanket to cover you. The air bites at your skin, and your breath lingers in the dark like smoke. And yet, there is also beauty. The silence, though harsh, can feel like a vast sea in which you drift. The chanting, though endless, becomes a gentle rhythm. The stones of the monastery, though heavy, seem to hold time itself in their weight. For you, the novice, this is the beginning. You may remain here all your life, growing old within these walls. Or you may fail and leave, broken and disgraced. The path is long. The days are hard. But you walk them in obedience, because that is the vow that binds you. As the candle burns low in your cell, you close your eyes. Tomorrow will be the same. Cold mornings, endless prayers, fasting, silence. This is your world now. The bells toll again. This time, not for you as a novice, but for another, a man whose name would echo through the cloisters of Europe. Bernard of Clairvaux. Close your eyes and imagine him. A tall, pale man, thin to the point of frailty. His cheeks hollow, his eyes deep and burning with conviction. His voice soft, yet filled with an intensity that drew kings to listen. He was born in Burgundy, in the year 1090. The world around him was shifting. Knights rode on crusade. Castles rose upon hilltops. The papacy wrestled with emperors. Yet Bernard's path began not with armies or crowns, but with the call of monastic life. He entered the monastery of Cateau, a place of strict Cistercian discipline. Imagine him as a young man, walking barefoot across the cloister floor, eating coarse bread, sleeping little, praying much. So fervent was his devotion that he drew others with him. His brothers, his friends, dozens of companions who followed him into the cloister, persuaded by the force of his belief. Soon he was sent out to found a new abbey. In a quiet valley the locals called Clara Vallis, the Clear Valley. From that name, Clairvaux. It was here that Bernard became abbot, and here that his influence grew like ripples in a pond. But Bernard's story is not one of quiet prayer alone. He was a man torn between the silence of devotion and the noise of the world beyond the monastery walls. Kings wrote to him. Popes summoned him. Noblemen begged him for counsel, and he, though reluctant, answered. His words, spoken with calm intensity, carried weight far beyond the cloister. He preached against heresy. He guided troubled rulers. He became an advisor to the papacy itself. And yet, all the while, he remained a monk. A man whose body grew frail with fasting, whose health suffered under the weight of prayer and responsibility. Picture him, bent over a manuscript, his hands thin, his body weak from sleepless nights. He lived in tension, between the call of solitude and the demands of power. For Bernard, holiness was not gentle. It was sharp, demanding, like walking barefoot across stones. Perhaps his most famous moment came when he preached the Second Crusade. Imagine him standing before a crowd, his voice calm yet unyielding, persuading thousands to take the cross. Knights wept. Peasants knelt. His words carried the weight of heaven itself. And yet, that crusade ended in failure. Armies perished. Kingdoms fell. And Bernard, who had promised divine success, bore the weight of disappointment. He wrote letters of sorrow, letters of explanation, always striving to reconcile faith with failure. His pen was as sharp as his tongue. Still he remained in Clairvaux, returning again and again to the rhythm of prayer, the discipline of silence, the cold stones of his abbey. When he died in 1153, he was worn thin, his body fragile, but his reputation immense. He was called a saint not long after, canonized and honored. Yet his life was not easy. It was filled with tension, with conflict, with the uneasy pull between solitude and power. Bernard of Clairvaux shows us that the monastery was not always a place apart from the world. Sometimes its walls held men who shaped the world itself. As you imagine him now, pale, thin, intense, let the sound of distant chanting return. The cloister grows quiet once more. The candle flickers, and we drift toward another mystery waiting in the shadows of the monastery. The monastery sleeps. The bells have ceased for the night, and the cloisters are wrapped in silence. But in a small room lit by flickering oil lamps, another kind of prayer continues. Not spoken with voices, but written with hands. This is the scriptorium. You enter quietly. The air is cool and faintly scented with ink and parchment. Rows of wooden desks stand beneath narrow windows, where monks sit hunched, their quills moving slowly across stretched sheets of animal skin. The scratching is steady, rhythmic, like the breathing of the monastery itself. Here, words become eternal. Here, the scriptures are copied, line by line, letter by letter. And sometimes, a page is not only written, but illuminated. Imagine a single sheet of vellum, smooth beneath the monk's hand. He dips his quill in ink, steadying his breath, and begins the slow work of drawing a letter larger than the rest. A curling A or a towering B, twined with vines and flowers. Gold leaf is pressed into place, gleaming faintly in the lamplight. Blue, red, and green pigments, ground from stone and plant, are laid carefully across the page. These are not hurried tasks. Each stroke takes time. Each line is deliberate. To illuminate a book could take months, even years. And yet, not all of these manuscripts are purely sacred. Look closer, into the margins. There, in the empty spaces, monks sometimes left traces of themselves. A tiny rabbit blowing a trumpet. A knight fighting a snail. A monkey dressed as a priest. These strange, playful images, drawn in secret, remind us that even in silence, humor slipped through the cracks of discipline. Some margins hold something else. A personal prayer scribbled small. A name of the scribe quietly hidden. A reminder that behind every line of Holy Scripture was a human hand. A weary monk, a soul yearning for more than endless repetition. Archaeologists have studied these manuscripts, puzzled over the meaning of their symbols. Were they jokes, lightening the burden of silence? Were they hidden warnings, cloaked in absurdity? Or simply the wandering thoughts of tired minds finding their way onto parchment? The mystery deepens with the pigments themselves. Fragments of lapis lazuli, mined in distant Afghanistan, travel thousands of miles to find their way into a monk-ass paint pot in France or England. Every stroke of blue carried with it the echo of trade, the weight of far-off mountains, the labor of unknown hands. Even in their solitude, the monks were bound to the wider world. Now, close your eyes. Picture a finished manuscript, a gospel book, heavy, bound in leather, its pages glowing with gold and color. When opened in the dim light of a church, the letters shimmer as though alive. The congregation, many unable to read, would see the gleam and feel awe. The Word of God revealed in brilliance. Yet for the novice, for the weary scribe, for the hidden hand in the margin, the manuscript was not only divine, it was also human. It carried the marks of boredom, of imagination, of mistakes crossed out and rewritten. It is a paradox, holy and playful, disciplined and free. The illuminated manuscripts are like the monastery itself, strict and solemn on the surface, but full of whispers, secrets, and unexpected light. As the oil lamp burns low, the scribe sets down his quill. The page is not finished. It may not be finished for months, but the work waits. The mystery lingers. And in the stillness of the cloister, the manuscript sleeps, carrying within it centuries of silence and color. The bell will soon toll again. And with it, we will turn from the world of hidden margins to the world of power. The abbots and lords who shape these cloisters not only with prayer, but with wealth and command. The monastery may appear silent, austere, and separate from the world, but behind its quiet walls, power moved. Imagine an abbot, the head of the monastery. His robes are finer, his voice carries weight, his seat at table higher than the rest. Though bound by the same vows, he stands apart. He is a leader, a judge, sometimes even a ruler in his own right. An abbot was not simply a spiritual guide. He was also a landholder, managing estates as vast as those of nobles. Fields of grain, herds of cattle, orchards, mills, even whole villages might belong to the monastery, and thus to him. Peasants paid rent, labor, and tithes, not to a knight or baron, but to a man of God. Walk with me into his chamber. It is larger than the novices' cells, with a fire smoldering in the hearth. Shelves hold books bound in leather. On the table lies a wax seal, used to mark letters that carried the abbot's commands across counties and kingdoms. From here, decisions were made. About land, about labor, about justice itself. Nobles visited monasteries, not only for prayer, but for politics. Kings wrote letters to abbots, requesting support or advice. Clergy rose to bishoprics, or even to cardinals' hats, after beginning as abbots. The cloister, for all its silence, was not cut off from the world's ambitions. It was woven into them. There were tensions, of course. The rule of Saint Benedict spoke of poverty, humility, and simplicity. But over centuries, monasteries grew rich. Gleaming chalices of silver sat upon altars. Golden reliquaries held the bones of saints. Pilgrims left offerings that filled coffers with coin. And so, a paradox appeared. While novices shivered in their cold cells, abbots dined at long tables with roasted meat and fine wine, entertaining noble guests. While brothers tilled the soil with aching hands, the monastery counted its rents and weighed its silver. Not all abbots embraced such wealth. Some struggled against it, longing to return to simplicity, fasting, and prayer. Others saw it as the natural order. The monastery, blessed by God, deserved prosperity. And so, like Bernard of Clairvaux before, abbots often stood at the crossroads, torn between solitude and influence, prayer and politics. Think of a great abbey like Cluny in Burgundy. Its bells rang not only for monks, but for the entire Christian world. Its abbots spoke as if kings. Its church towered above the landscape, a monument to wealth as much as to devotion. And yet, inside those very walls, novices still woke before dawn, still swept the cloisters, still prayed in silence. For beneath the gilded chalices and embroidered vestments, the rhythm of monastic life endured, unchanged, relentless. The monastery, then, was both sanctuary and stage. It sheltered the humble and empowered the mighty. It bound men to silence, even as it gave others a voice heard across nations. As you listen now, let the echoes of those bells fade once more. Imagine the stone walls darkening with age, the manuscripts closed, the abbot's chair empty, the novices asleep on straw. Centuries have passed since those cloisters were filled with chanting, but the rhythm remains. The cold mornings, the endless prayers, the weight of obedience. The monastery lingers in memory, at once harsh, holy, and human. And so we leave the monastery. We have walked with novices through cold mornings and silence. We have listened to the life of Bernard of Clairvaux, a monk torn between prayer and power. We have peered into illuminated manuscripts where holy texts gleamed with both devotion and play. And we have glimpsed the wealth and authority of abbots who held sway over both cloister and kingdom. As you settle now into the quiet of your own night, let these echoes soften. Let the stone walls fade, the bells fall silent, the candle gutters out. The monastery drifts back into the past. You are here in the stillness. The world is hushed, and sleep, like the cloister, opens its doors. Rest well.